November 19, 1942. The Don Steppe southwest of Stalingrad. The wind cuts across the frozen plain like a blade drawn slowly from its sheath. Snow skitters along the ground, whispering against the hulls of tanks dug into shallow revetments. Somewhere in the darkness an engine coughs then dies. Red Army General Konstantin Rokossovsky stands beside a command truck, his greatcoat pulled tight, breath fogging the air. He listens not to the wind but to the silence. It is an unnatural silence. For weeks the front has been alive with artillery, German dive bombers, the grinding roar of armor. Now in the hours before dawn, there is only the low murmur of men and machines waiting to move. Rokossovsky checks his watch by the dim glow of a shaded lamp. The time is close. Across the steppe, concealed behind snowbanks and camouflage netting, thousands of Soviet guns are already laid in. 76mm field guns. 122mm howitzers. Katyusha rocket launchers, their rails iced over, crews stamping their feet to keep warm. Tank engines idle under blankets, T-34s, their diesel motors chosen for this very climate, crews hunched inside steel shells that smell of oil, sweat, and fear. Rokossovsky has been a cavalry officer once. He has known defeat, arrest, and near execution during the purges. Now he commands the Don Front, one half of a plan so vast that even some of his own officers barely grasp its full scope. The name of the plan is Operation Uranus. Far to the east, in the ruins of Stalingrad itself, German soldiers of General Friedrich Paulus's 6th Army are still fighting room to room, cellar to cellar. They believe, or have been ordered to believe, that the Red Army is broken, that winter will finish what the Luftwaffe and the panzers began. Paulus's attention, like Hitler's, is fixed on the Volga River, on the city that bears Stalin's name. What Paulus does not see, what Rokossovsky sees with chilling clarity, is that the German flanks are thin. Dangerously thin. Holding the long, exposed northern and southern shoulders of the 6th Army are not elite German divisions, but Romanian 3rd and 4th Armies. Brave men poorly equipped. Anti-tank guns that cannot reliably penetrate a T-34. Artillery short on ammunition. Units stretched across open steppe, with little depth, little armor, and almost no reserves. Rokossovsky knows this because Soviet reconnaissance knows this. Prisoners have talked. Aerial photos have confirmed it. Intelligence officers have marked every gun pit, every command post, every gap. At precisely 7:20 the silence shatters. The opening Soviet barrage does not roll forward like earlier Red Army attacks. It does not creep. It erupts. Thousands of guns fire at once, the shockwave slamming into the frozen earth, rattling teeth, splitting eardrums. Katyusha rockets scream overhead, their unearthly howl tearing through the gray dawn before detonating in sheets of fire among Romanian positions. German liaison officers at Romanian headquarters stare at their maps in disbelief as telephone lines go dead one by one. Forward observers are simply gone, erased. Trenches vanish under fountains of dirt and snow. Men stumble out, bleeding, deafened, shouting into the smoke. Then the armor comes. Soviet tank brigades surge forward, treads biting into frozen ground, infantry clinging to hulls with white-knuckled grips. Red flags snap in the wind. Officers blow whistles, pistols raised, urging men onward through the barrage they themselves have unleashed. Rokossovsky moves to the front command post as reports begin to arrive. Romanian units collapsing. Anti-tank guns knocked out in minutes. Breakthroughs measured not in meters but kilometers. This is no desperate counterattack. This is a calculated blow delivered where the enemy is weakest, with overwhelming force. To the south, another Soviet general, Nikolai Vatutin, is doing the same. His southwestern front is punching through the Romanian 4th Army, driving northward with armor and mechanized infantry. Two steel jaws are closing, one from the north, one from the south, aimed not at the German spearheads in Stalingrad but at the empty space behind them. By midday, Rokossovsky studies a map smeared with pencil marks and coffee stains. His chief of staff points silently to a widening gap in the enemy line. The breakthrough is already deeper than planned. Rokossovsky feels it then, not triumph, not relief, but a cold certainty. The Germans are not retreating because they cannot. They are holding the city because they do not yet understand that the ground beneath them is being cut away. If the pincers meet, if the Soviet armor reaches the Kalach bridge over the Don, the 6th Army will not be pushed back. It will be sealed inside. Rokossovsky steps outside again into the wind and the thunder of guns. He looks west toward the unseen enemy rear areas, and for the first time allows himself the thought he has not dared speak aloud. The trap is closing. November 21, 1942. near Kalach-on-Don. The bridge over the Don River still stands, and that alone makes it a prize worth killing for. Snow churns into mud beneath tank tracks as Soviet armor advances at full speed, engines howling, exhaust spitting black smoke into the pale winter sky. At the head of the column, a T-34 commander leans half out of his hatch, goggles rimed with ice, shouting directions as tracer fire snaps past his turret. This is no longer a breakthrough. This is a race. 2 days have passed since the opening artillery barrage, and the front has ceased to resemble a line at all. It is now a shattered mosaic of collapsing units, fleeing columns, and isolated strongpoints burning in the steppe. Romanian formations have disintegrated under the weight of Soviet armor. German liaison officers report temporary setbacks. In reality, entire corps have ceased to exist. Inside his forward headquarters, General Konstantin Rokossovsky studies a map that no longer keeps pace with events. Red grease pencil arrows push west and south far faster than scheduled. Each hour brings new radio reports, tank brigades overrunning supply dumps, cavalry units cutting roads, motorized infantry seizing crossings intact. One report crackling through static makes the room go silent. Kalach has fallen. The bridge across the Don, the logistical artery feeding the German 6th Army, is in Soviet hands. Rokossovsky closes his eyes for a brief moment. Not in relief. In calculation. Across the river, German columns are still moving east, unaware that the road ahead now leads directly into Soviet guns. Staff cars race toward Kalach only to turn back under fire. Fuel trucks burn. Ammunition wagons explode. The arteries are severed. Far to the east, inside the ruins of Stalingrad, General Friedrich Paulus stands in a shattered factory office, listening to distant artillery that sounds wrong, not the familiar thunder from the Volga front, but a deeper, rolling roar from the west. His chief of staff spreads out situation maps, red pins marking enemy breakthroughs that were never supposed to happen. Paulus frowns. He requests clarification from Army Group B. The reply is vague. Communications are breaking down. German infantrymen still fight in the city, still assault basements and stairwells, still believe they are on the brink of final victory. But behind them, the horizon is filling with Soviet tanks, and no one has told them yet. At Rokossovsky's headquarters, the tone is no longer cautious. Orders are short, sharp, decisive. Tank corps are redirected not to fight Germans head-on, but to drive past them. Speed matters more than annihilation. The objective is no longer enemy units, it is space. Close the ring. On November 22nd, Soviet spearheads from the north and south draw within striking distance of one another. The cold intensifies. Men sleep in ditches, engines running through the night to keep oil from freezing solid. Infantry march beside tanks, boots wrapped in rags, rifles slung, faces hollowed by exhaustion. They are no longer attacking a front. They are drawing a circle. Rokossovsky receives word that German panzer reserves, what few exist, are attempting to counterattack toward the Kalach corridor. They arrive piecemeal. A battalion here. A company there. Fuel starved. Air support minimal. Soviet anti-tank guns knock them out one by one, their blackened hulls littering the snow like abandoned carcasses. The Red Army has learned. This is not 1940. Not blind charges. Not unsupported infantry. This is combined arms, armor, artillery, infantry, air, working with grim precision. Late on November 23rd, near the village of Sovsky, Soviet forward units from the 4th Tank Corps spot unfamiliar silhouettes through drifting snow. Green-painted tanks. Red stars visible beneath grime. They are not German. They are Soviet. The pincers have met. A young lieutenant runs forward, waving his cap, shouting hoarsely. Tank crews climb from their hatches, laughing, shaking hands, slapping frozen shoulders. Someone fires a pistol into the air. For a brief moment, amid the wreckage and smoke, there is celebration. 70 kilometers to the east, that sound is not heard. Inside Stalingrad, Paulus is finally informed. The 6th Army is surrounded. More than 250,000 Axis troops, German, Romanian, Croatian auxiliaries, are now inside a tightening ring of Soviet steel. Their supply lines are cut. Their airfields are threatened. Winter has only just begun. Paulus requests permission to break out immediately, while fuel and strength remain. The answer comes from Fura headquarters. The 6th Army will hold its positions, relief will come. Rokossovsky receives intercepted signals shortly afterward. He reads them in silence. He does not underestimate the enemy. A trapped army can still fight desperately, savagely. But he also knows something Paulus does not yet fully grasp. Every hour the Germans wait, the ring grows stronger. Artillery is being dragged into position. Trenches dug. Anti-tank guns sighted. The noose is no longer improvised. It is being locked. Rokossovsky steps outside again, snow crunching beneath his boots. In the far distance, the horizon flickers with gunfire, a dull encircling glow. The trap has closed. Now comes the slow work of crushing what is inside. December 1, 1942. Western encirclement line, Stalingrad pocket. The cold is no longer just an inconvenience. It is a weapon. Ice clings to rifle bolts and gun breeches. Fuel turns thick as syrup. Men wake with frostbitten fingers, boots frozen solid, breath crystallizing on wool scarves. Along the Soviet encirclement line, trenches snake across the steppe, reinforced with frozen earth and scavenged timber. Artillery pieces are dug in muzzle deep, their crews working by instinct, hands numb, faces wrapped until only eyes show. General Konstantin Rokossovsky rides forward in a battered staff car, stopping at command posts that were empty fields a week earlier. He listens more than he speaks. Battalion commanders report German probes repulsed. Prisoners taken, hollow-eyed men in filthy greatcoats, stunned not by capture, but by the realization that there is no rear area left to retreat into. Inside the pocket, General Friedrich Paulus faces a reality he had never planned for. The promised relief has not come. The Luftwaffe's airlift, ordered personally by Hermann Göring, sputters from the start. Junkers Ju-52s struggle through snowstorms and Soviet fighters, landing on frozen strips that are under constant artillery fire. Each aircraft carries only a fraction of what is needed. Fuel arrives without ammunition. Ammunition without food. Wounded pile up in cellars untreated, their breath fogging the darkness. Rokossovsky studies reports of German airdrops with grim interest. He orders fighter patrols intensified. Anti-aircraft guns are moved closer to likely landing grounds. Every transport shot down is not just an aircraft lost, it is hundreds of men pushed closer to starvation. On December 4th, Rokossovsky convenes his senior commanders. Maps cover the walls. Red circles enclose Stalingrad, layered with unit symbols, artillery concentrations, and planned assault sectors. This phase has a name as well, Operation Ring. The objective is not a dramatic breakthrough. It is methodical destruction. Step by step, the encirclement will contract. German strongpoints will be isolated, pounded by artillery, then reduced by infantry and armor working together. Time favors the Red Army. Hunger and cold gnaw at the enemy every hour. The first large-scale attacks begin days later. Soviet guns open fire before dawn, not in a single thunderclap, but in rolling waves that move from sector to sector. German defenders, already exhausted, scramble from shelter to shelter, unsure where the next blow will fall. A German infantry lieutenant writes in his diary that morning, "The Russians do not rush anymore. They advance like men who know they have all the time in the world." Rokossovsky understands this shift better than anyone. He remembers 1941, the chaos, the retreats, the panic. This is different. This is control. On December 12th, news arrives that jolts every headquarters around Stalingrad. German forces under Field Marshal Erich von Manstein have launched a relief attempt from the south, Operation Winter Storm. Panzer divisions push toward the pocket, their tracks cutting through snow, guns blazing. For the first time since the encirclement, the Germans are moving with purpose again. Paulus sends urgent signals. Fuel is nearly gone, but if relief reaches the Don corridor, a breakout might still be possible. Rokossovsky reads the intercepts carefully. He knows this is the critical moment. If Manstein breaks through, the entire operation could unravel. Orders go out immediately. Reserves are shifted. Artillery is redeployed. Soviet tank armies move to block the approach routes. The Red Army does not rush headlong to meet Manstein. It absorbs the blow, trading space for time, forcing German armor to fight in killing zones under massed guns. By December 19th, Manstein's spearheads are stalled, then halted entirely near the Mishkova River. Paulus waits for the order to break out. It never comes. Hitler forbids it. Inside the pocket, German soldiers listen to Soviet loudspeakers offering surrender. Some laugh bitterly. Others simply stare at the snow, calculating how many days of bread remain. Horses are slaughtered. Then dogs. Then rats. Rokossovsky does not celebrate. He watches the pocket shrink on his maps, each adjustment measured in kilometers and lives. He knows the end is approaching, but also that it will be costly. On December 24th, he writes a short note to Moscow: "The enemy is weakening. Morale is collapsing. Supplies are nearly exhausted. The trap that closed in November is now tightening like a vise. And soon there will be nowhere left for the Sixth Army to stand." January 8, 1943. Dawn front headquarters outside Stalingrad. A white flag moves slowly across the snow. It is barely visible at first, just a pale shape against a frozen landscape scarred by shell craters and wreckage. Soviet sentries raise their rifles, then lower them as a small group of German officers approaches cautiously, boots crunching, hands held away from their coats. One carries a leather folder, edges worn smooth by weeks of handling. Inside Rokossovsky's headquarters, a coal stove crackles as the delegation is escorted in. General Konstantin Rokossovsky stands at the map table, expression unreadable. Beside him are officers of the Don Front, including representatives from the 65th Army and political officers sent from Moscow. The German emissaries come to a halt. Their uniforms hang loosely on them. Faces hollow, eyes rimmed red. They salute. The document they present is a formal Soviet ultimatum, prepared days earlier, approved by Stavka itself. It offers Paulus's Sixth Army a chance to surrender with honor, lives spared, medical care provided, repatriation after the war. Rokossovsky watches their faces as the terms are read aloud. He sees it then, the flicker of hope, quickly extinguished by duty. The German officers request time to consult Paulus. They are granted it. When the reply comes hours later, it is brief. Refusal. Inside the pocket, General Friedrich Paulus reads the ultimatum in silence. He knows it is reasonable. He also knows that accepting it without Hitler's approval would mean court-martial, or worse. He signals back that the Sixth Army will continue to fight. Rokossovsky exhales slowly when he hears the answer. There is no anger. Only inevitability. At 8:05 on January 10th, the guns begin again. Operation Ring enters its final phase. More than 7,000 Soviet artillery pieces open fire along the shrinking perimeter. The bombardment is relentless, not the wild barrages of earlier years, but carefully timed, overlapping strikes that pulverize known German positions. Concrete bunkers crack. Cellars collapse. Snow turns black with soot and blood. Soviet infantry advances behind the fire, moving from ruin to ruin, flamethrowers clearing dugouts, submachine guns rattling at close range. Tanks grind forward where the ground allows, their hulls already scarred from weeks of fighting. Rokossovsky remains at his command post, receiving updates every hour. The western side of the pocket caves in first. German units retreat not in formation, but in clusters, dragging wounded, abandoning guns they can no longer move. By January 15th, the pocket is split in two. The southern group, centered in the city itself, clings to the ruins near the Volga. The northern group around the tractor factory and airfields is isolated entirely. Luftwaffe transports can no longer land there at all. Paulus moves his headquarters into the basement of a destroyed department store, the Univermag. Maps cover the walls, but they no longer reflect reality. Entire divisions exist only as names. On January 30th, Hitler promotes Paulus to field marshal. The message is clear. No German field marshal has ever surrendered. Rokossovsky is informed of the promotion within hours. He understands its meaning immediately. It is not an honor. It is a command. Inside the Univermag cellar, Paulus sits on a camp stool, hands resting on his knees. Around him, staff officers wait in silence. The sounds of battle echo closer now, grenades, machine guns shouting in Russian. He does not kill himself. 2 days later, on February 2, 1943, organized resistance in the northern pocket ceases. The southern group follows shortly after. German officers emerge from cellars with white cloths tied to sticks. Soldiers stumble forward, skeletal, eyes vacant. Rokossovsky tours the battlefield afterward. He sees the cost, the frozen dead, Soviet and German alike, the shattered city reduced to a moonscape of brick and steel. He does not linger. In Moscow, church bells ring. Factories stop work for a moment of silence, then resume at double pace. For the first time since 1941, the Red Army has not merely stopped the enemy. It has destroyed an entire German army. Rokossovsky writes his final report simply: the Sixth Army has ceased to exist. The trap that closed in November has finished its work.